Hello and welcome to another episode of Steelfur Speaks with, of course, me, Steelfur, aka Finbar, a London-based Flesh and Blood and other card game-based player. I've been doing a lot of Flesh and Blood videos recently. Really like the game. I've been playing a lot more Flesh and Blood, which is very good. Though I do have videos for other card games in the works. There's some Legend of the Five Rings stuff coming soon, which will be about what the Jade Council is doing with their new name and all that sort of stuff. I'm just waiting for them to announce all those things so that we can start talking about it. And then there'll be some Ashes Reborn stuff probably in a few weeks' time because I really want to play it in person before I start talking about it too much. But today's video, we're going to talk about Flesh and Blood, specifically Monarch. You'll see I've got this lovely new backdrop for my videos, which is, of course, the Monarch art design for Flesh and Blood. You have the logo and you have the game logo as well, which I'll be using just for these videos. But, you can turn off. I'm not doing any visuals really for this video, so you can always just tune in on audio, or if you're listening via the podcast, which I should upload this to later on today, then you can listen to that and just, hopefully my voice is soothing enough. I've been told it's reasonably comfortable. So, topic for today is Monarch First Edition experience so far, supply, demand, what I think is going to happen next. So, let's just start off quickly by talking about the pre-releases. I have been to 3, and I have another one coming up on this Friday. It was delayed just due to supply issues, but, it is coming up, and really excited to get my teeth stuck into another one of these. I've really enjoyed playing all 3 of them. In my first one, I played Levia. Things did not go particularly well. I got some good Majestics. I got about 13 6-strength cards and about 12 cards that banished stuff and a fairly decent pool. I didn't get a lot of very good Majestic 6-strength cards, which was annoying. But I felt like I had enough to build a deck. And the first game, I absolutely smashed it every turn, coming in for 6, 7, 8, 9. But then every game after that was downhill. And then for my last game, I actually rebuilt into my chain pool and actually had a much better game. So I probably should have been playing chain from the start. The other one, I built up a Prism deck, but that was more of an informal event because the store cancelled the event. We weren't sure if the kits were going to arrive. So people just, the ones who got the kits on the day when they were supposed to come, essentially just played a few casual games. I was playing with Prism, I think, and then I played a bit with Chain. And then for my second proper pre-release, which was on the Sunday, I opened a really good Chain pool. I opened some Rip Through Realities, Vexing Hexes, Dimensional Crossroads, just one of those. And of course, I got the Null Rune, the Spell Void Helm, I got the Aetherweave Chest, I got Time Skipper boots. I got everything. I got some really good stuff. So I kind of went in with that deck, and I went 3-1. So I got to the final and came second. I won a Doomsday playmat, which is gorgeous. I can't wait to get my hands on that. I've also won a Katsu playmat around here somewhere, which I should probably sell because I like Ninja, but I'm not. I don't need a playmat for that. So yeah, I've got my other pre-release coming up on Friday. I'm kind of hoping maybe I'll get a strong Bolton pool because he's the only one I haven't really tried yet. Just to say my initial impressions of Monarch Sealed is it's fantastic. Like, at first glance, Prism just seems overpowered because all of her attacks are strong and there's no easy way to shut them down. But then you start looking at Bolton and you realize he's really aggressive, and if he gets a good draw, he can just keep coming in for more and more attacks, and then you get a bit caught up in that. But then you look at Chain, and Chain is just, okay, well, I flip the top 5 cards of my deck, and suddenly I'm hitting you 5 times because I got enough go again. And then I've seen Levias just tear people apart. I don't think it's entirely balanced. I think, for reasons of low 6-cost density outside of Levia, especially in the neutral, in the generics, I think the Prism is definitely favored. But I think it's very easy to build a good Prism deck, and I think that's why you're seeing Prism win a lot. The Iris is very good with shields, giving consistent damage. All of her heralds going into the soul are consistent for shields, and it's very hard to stop them unless you're playing Brute. So Prism is definitely a hard matchup, but you can beat them by just being more aggressive than they are and putting pressure on so they can't attack you as much. And that's certainly what we're seeing with the Bolton players and the Chain players who are taking them down. So I think the set is balanced. I have really, really enjoyed it. And you know what? I would really love to run some more Sealed down the line now that I've played a few events, maybe in 2-3 weeks. of the Monarch stuff that's going on. I have been playing a bit of CC on TTS. I have a Prism deck. I have two Prism decks, in fact, one that is more aura focused and blues and yellows and Iris of Reality, and another one that's more attack focused with Luminaris in the works. I will probably do a video on those in a week or two. I kind of want to try them and refine them a bit before I start putting my name to them and putting them out there. Because the other video I did was like a first glance, but this one I want it to be a bit more polished and actually be like, well, maybe other people can test this deck. And I feel like if I just put it out there without doing the testing myself, I'm not really doing the best I can. But I will say I originally went into the set loving Prism, loving the art, loving the heralds, all that stuff really caught me. I have been really surprised by how much I have enjoyed playing Chain in all the pre-releases, and I really now have just been converted to this idea that I'm just going to be banishing half my deck and playing loads of abilities and all this sort of stuff. Chain just seems really, really fun. And Bolton as well seems really, really fun, though I haven't had a chance to play him yet. So I can definitely see myself really getting on hard with this Monarch bandwagon. I'm in my ninja set, my Katsu set. I'm not really feeling Katsu is as fun as Chain. So, if you want to buy a Mask of Momentum, hit me up, I guess. And my Kano set will still be there. And obviously, Kano is my first hero in this game and my favorite hero. But I don't really see myself playing Kano until Wizard gets more support, maybe the next set or the set afterwards. I just feel like I don't know how he's going to play in this new meta, and I still think he'd be good in Blitz, but I'm looking really hard into CC right now, and I'm not really sure if I can see myself playing Kano as much in CC as I can play, say, Prism or Chain or something with a bit more sort of aggression and a bit more sort of health. Let's be honest, a bit more health. So yeah, let's go with that. In terms of pulls from the pre-release, I wasn't necessarily amazing on the pulls. I guess I can show them to you here. These are kind of the real pulls. I obviously got a load of good rares that pushed me into different things. But if we look, you'll see... Oh, where are we now? Here we go. Let me just hold this up here. Yeah, you'll see I have Shadow of Baphomet. I have a Shadow of Ursa. I have a foil Seek Horizon. A foil Pulping in there. The rest of these are just common foils. Tear Limb from Limb on the Brute side. Whoop. Sorry, getting this in the camera is fine. Pulping. There's a Tekla Foundry Heart open last week as well. That doesn't really matter. A Raiden as well. Dimensional Crossroads. But of course, my best pull of the entire week was that cold foil Vestige of Soul that I pulled, which I have already sent off to be graded because I think it's a gorgeous card. And to be honest, the one I pulled was pretty much in mint condition, so I'm pretty confident that that's going to get a good grade, which I can then store for a while. But I will be playing Prism, so I may use it. I may trade it and some other stuff to get a Prism Unlimited Majestic Legendary set. But I may hold on to it for a while. We'll see how that goes. I'm not some big whale collector. I do like to. I have a few cold foils in various stages of grading and in my collection, and some I'm selling. So if you want a cold foil Viscerai and Reaping Blade combination, do hit me up. But this whole cold foil discussion does bring us back to, I guess, the talk about First Edition and the talk about supply and demand of Flesh and Blood and the talk about accessibility, collectability, what's supposed to be happening with all of those things in this new game that we all play. So let's talk about supply and demand first, because I think that's an interesting topic. A lot of people have been speculating that so we have a rough idea, and I can read these numbers out for you from the Collector Center, because we know specifically the print run numbers for each of the sets, right? They told us we know the print run numbers for each of the sets. We know that Crucible had 900,000 booster packs. We know that Arcane Rising had 400,000, and we know that Alpha Edition of Welcome to Wraith had 400,000. These are the first edition prints. So a lot of people are expecting and predicting that Monarch is going to be 900,000 plus another 500,000 or something. They think it's going to be maybe 0.5 extra times Crucible size, because Crucible of War still sells for £1,000 a box. It's still a very desirable set, right? Whereas Welcome to Wraith First Edition, Arcane Rising First Edition, both sell for about 4K a box, and are much harder to get. Now, I disagree with that for a very simple reason, and the reason is this. My logic is just that Crucible was printed in 2 waves because they didn't have time to get Unlimited ready because they were busy with Monarch, and no set is going to be printed in 2 waves for First Edition. And I feel like going from 400,000 to 900,000 of a First Edition print run, given that they had to order Monarch probably a year in advance, which is, as I understand it, how long it takes to get a card game printed, especially in the modern world with print shortages. The idea that they would commit to 1.5, was more like 1.1 times, or is it 2? No, 2.1 times the printing of their previous set when ordering Monarch just seems a bit unrealistic. So my personal bet is they're going to have gone for maybe a 30 to 40% increase. We'll see 600 to 700,000 boosters printed, which will be like 60,000 boxes, and that may, and I kind of feel like that reflects what we're seeing in terms of actual market supply and demand. The UK was heavily allocated, with stores getting like 10% of their orders. A store says 40, 50 boxes, that's a good order. One store gets 120, that's great. America's been getting 4,000 or 5,000 at certain retailers, but most others have been getting a couple hundred. We know that it hasn't even arrived in New Zealand yet. There's supply and demand issues, but it seems like there might also just be a lot less First Edition than people realize. And will there be a second wave printing of First Edition? There will not, because Unlimited is coming out a month later, and now we're probably even shorter, and I think it's coming out next week if you're in New Zealand, because First Edition's been delayed. But my point is, Unlimited is always supposed to be the set that fills everyone's boots with Monarch. That is coming out a month later. Why do you need to print a lot more of the First Edition, right? And do you take the gamble, right, to print a lot more of First Edition? And I don't think you do. I don't think as a new games company on your third set you take a gamble at printing 120% more of the product than you printed previously, right? Or, double or triple what you printed previously for a First Edition set. I think you commit to 30 to 40%. You don't want to flood the market. You don't want to risk all the collectors, investors who've joined in your game, turning off the game. So you print a reasonable amount, right? You print a reasonable increase, 30 to 40%. Your game's popular a year in advance. You can't predict the price of crew. So you just say, okay, 30 to 40% higher. And that's what I'm going to go with. If I'm wrong and they've correctly printed that Crucible was going to go way up as it did, and they really want a lot more First Edition out there, and they're not really trusting Unlimited to get people as interested in the game, then maybe they've printed loads more of First Edition Monarch. But I'm not seeing it. I think if they printed as much First Edition in the first wave of Monarch as they did for Crew, you wouldn't have supply problems in the UK, for example. I think we would have gotten more than the couple thousand. I think we've got 2,000 or 3,000 boxes after just adding up all the stores and how much they're talking about getting. So I think you would have seen a lot more than that. And I think the fact that the EU has been allocated quite hard, that supply is quite short, even for some stores outside of certain large ones in the US. And we'll talk about that in a second. So I think that's very much indicates that Monarch is not the huge print run that some people are claiming it is, but it is probably still larger. I mean, we're talking 30 to 40% larger. We're shooting around that 7,000 to 8,000 800,000 booster pack mark, right? That just feels right to me. Because you don't, as a people making a new product, want to overinflate supply, especially when it's a tradable commodity, because you don't want to dilute the amount that is actually available, and therefore render people's collections null and void. And there's another thing that makes me think this, which is just very, very simple. TCG Player, right? TCG Player, Rudy, all the ones that have partnerships with LSS, right, have, by no fault of their own, they're all business people, likely had conversations with LSS about supply and demand of Monarch First Edition, right? They can't not have it. It's their business. So if you've had those discussions, supply and demand with LSS, and they know that you're selling this product for 5 times, so a box is usually about $100 in America, you're selling that product for 5 times MSRP as an official partner. Remember Channel Fireball selling it for that much? They are the people who distribute LSS promos in America. We have, TCG player who were given special dispensation to send out pre-release at home kits due to COVID to people in America, which clearly had to have special permission from LSS because they're the only people who were sending out boxes pre-release date. Remember, all of us who actually went to pre-releases, we got 6-packs. People in America who bought the pre-release at home kit got a box. I mean, that's a huge difference, a week in advance. So, that tells you something about their discussions with LSS. Would LSS have let their partners sell this for 5 times retail if there was a larger print run than we've seen before or a larger second wave? Would they have done it, or would they have said, guys, look, there's actually a lot more supply this time. Can you keep it down to MSRP? There's going to be enough for everyone. That conversation would simply just have happened, right? Or there would be more supply and the price would be lower. The fact that we're seeing $500 per box / or more now from LSS associated people means that Monarch is not as big a print run as some people are predicting. It's that simple. And, this is on pre-orders as well. It took Crucible how long to get to 1,500 or whatever it's at now? The fact is that boxes are not supposed to be above MSRP before retail. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be available for people at that price and then marked up afterwards. And the fact that we're seeing it marked up so high before by LSS associated retailers means that there is a supply shortage that has not been corrected. That's as simple as it is. And people keep saying Monarch's going to keep going up. But, I mean, you have to think about it this way, right? All that's happening at the moment is that all of that speculation about increasing has shifted to the stores because the stores were annoyed that they lost out all the money when Crucible went up if they didn't keep a stock for themselves, or all the money on Alpha by not keeping a stock for themselves. We're not going to see as huge a spike in Monarch post release because the stores we've already seen a lot of that speculation pre-release. Not to say that it won't go up, but will it hit 4K? It's not selling for anywhere near that now, so we'll see. And there are a few other factors, of course. How much gets opened, all that kind of stuff will determine how well this sells in the future and how much it sells for. But I think it's worth just factoring in when you are buying Monarch for $500-$600 a box or £300-400 in the UK, that a lot of the growth potential for that product, that asset class, has already happened before you have purchased it from the store, right? It's like buying a stock when it's already gone up. It could go down. In fact, and this is what I want to come back to, we are actually seeing prices drop for Monarch First Edition on eBay, online, as people are actually getting the product into their hands. Because there are a lot of people who bought First Edition strictly with the intent of selling the box. They don't actually play Flesh and Blood. They've just heard that it's a good way to speculate. And, they wanted to just try and flip it. And they're selling it for $300, $400. They don't care. They bought it for $100. If they sell it for $300, $400, that's a quick buck. They can put it, they move on to the next investment, right? There's a lot of that going on, and the market price is going to drop for a bit. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to buy it at $300, hold it for a while. So, if you're one of those people who doesn't need to sell it right now, it's probably a good idea to actually hold on to those boxes for another month or two. Let all the people who are going to open them. Let all the people who are going to sell out quickly just to move on to the next investment, sell out and see where it ends up before you make any decisions. Now, it could still crash. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not even a TCG investor. I am, at best, I'm a telecoms business analyst, right? I know a bit about business. I know how to bundle and segment and do all that market stuff that people do to figure out whether a product is good, whether a product is healthy. And I know how to work out volumes versus sales and costs and all that sort of spreadsheet stuff, because that's what I do for a living. As well as doing like mass market surveys and anecdotal and gathering qualitative evidence. So, when I say I'm basing an opinion not based on data, but I'm basing it based on anecdotes and things like that, I have a process for reviewing anecdotes and deciding which ones I think are legitimate and which ones I think aren't. And that kind of brings us to my next topic, which is collectability of this game, right? So we have talked about supply. Don't think Monarch's going to be as big a print run as some people say it is. But there are clearly supply issues because it's selling for £500 pre-release, right? That is indicative that the stores that are selling it are predicting the supply issue and basically want to get more money before it sells. There's a recap of my previous point. So, if that is the case, we assume that it is for now, what does that say to us about the future viability of Flesh and Blood as a collector's product for your typical collectors, right? Now, let's talk about collectors kind of in 2 or 3 different categories. I think this is kind of interesting. So you've got the high-level, financial level speculators that Magic has created over the past, 20 odd years, 30 odd years, I guess. These are the people who buy en masse. They have a large amount of capital. You talk about your alpha investments if you want. There are plenty of others like them. They're the people you see posting photos of their 20 cold foil hearts and their 15 cold foil, and their alpha blocks and their, I have 20 cases of alpha unlimited I haven't sold. Not alpha unlimited, you know what I mean. They're those people. They're the people who have a lot of money already. They probably invest in other things, and they've realized that actually Flesh and Blood is probably a good way to make a bit of money, and it seems to be going up, and it seems to be investable. And they may not even play the game that much. They may not even like the game that much, but they see it as an investment, and they probably know a bit about cards, and they're willing to invest their time in it, right? And some of them will play the game, and some of them will know a lot about the game, and there'll be a whole range, but that's not really the point to focus on. The point is to just focus upon the amount of money those people are willing to spend, and also the amount of energy those people are, like the amount of basically energy those people are willing to expend to keep the prices at a point where their investment is maintained. So they understand a very simple fact, right? A cold foil is worth, whatever a cold foil is worth, 6,000, right? If they have 20 cold foils that are worth 6,000, then the price drops to 5,000. They lose, £20,000. If they buy again, drive the price up a little, then the price may stay constant, and they can control the market in that way by not selling their own supply, because we're talking about a very, very limited commodity, about 2,500 of certain cold foils. It's very, very easy for some people with big wallets to control supply of a commodity like that and just drip feed it back into the market at a certain price. And that's what works in Magic. There is an issue with Flesh and Blood and collecting, right? Now, some people may disagree this is an issue, but I personally think this is an issue, right? Is that in Magic, you have essentially a very organic growth cycle for collection. You have people who start with modern Magic. They get a small collection to go together. They start to enjoy the feeling of collection. They build a small collection of those cards, and then their cards become modern, right? And they start thinking, okay, well, I could play modern with these cards I've got that I really like. I have my amazing Merfolk collection. So I'm going to collect more Merfolk. And they start expanding into modern Merfolk. And they start to get all these things. I'm just using the Merfolk as an example. I haven't played Magic in, 2 hours because I was drafting a bit of Strixhaven on Arena. But I haven't really played Magic properly in years. But my point is that there is a natural pathway to go from small-scale collector to large-scale collector in Magic, where you're building your collection slowly. It ages, as does your appreciation of the game. And by the time you start thinking about acquiring, say, the, 20-year-old Merfolk Commander or whatever the card is that would go perfectly in your now legacy deck because you've been playing Magic for 5 years, and those cards you bought when they were standard are now went to modern and then shifted into an older set when more stuff became available. By the time you begin considering that purchase, your level of investment is very, 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 very high. Okay, because you are invested in the game as a player, you're invested in the set that you've collected and wanting to finish it as a collector, and you're willing to invest more in those expensive or power-heavy cards, right? Stickiness. Stickiness drives the organic progression of collectors, because you go from one thing to the next to the next. And the only thing that interferes with that is basically a stopping point where your desire to collect is matched or beaten by your potential and the ability you have to collect, right? And what I mean by that is if suddenly the card you're buying, you're used to spending £20 to £200 per card to build up a decent collection, and suddenly someone else turns around and asks you for £1,000 a card, you might go and say, okay, I can stretch to that once, right? Because this might be the crowning card. But if someone turns around and asks you for £2,000 for a card, you might be like, well, that's 100 times more what I've paid before, so I can't do that. I'm used to buying £20 a card. I'm not going to buy them, right? If someone asks you for 20 grand a card, you're just going to laugh and say, no, that's not happening. Like, it's ridiculous, right? Okay. But if you slowly build up your spend and move forward, and suddenly you buy £1,000 card, and okay, the next year there's another £1,000 card for a steal, so you buy that, and then suddenly you've got two £2,000 cards, so buying another £2,000 card, it kind of makes sense, and now your collection's doubled, and you really wanted it, finish things off. Okay, so let's move away from the Magic example where you've had 5 years of collectability, and let's move to what's happening in Flesh and Blood, right? Okay. Because, and this is where we get important, right? Because we do have two distinct sets in Flesh and Blood, the first edition and the unlimited. Okay? Now, if you are a collector, are you happy collecting a full set of unlimited? Does it tick your boxes? And this is a genuine question. You can answer me in the comments. Does it tick your boxes? Does it make you feel good? Do you feel like you've achieved something? Or are you always looking at first edition being like, well, why can't I have that? I thought that was for collectors. Right? So, and that's a big question. So this is where we come down to the anecdotal evidence, because I've been having conversations, I've been reading Wall Street, I've been reading the UK Discord, I've been talking to people, and the stories are starting to add up. The stories of people who are, they were light level collectors in Magic or another card game, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. They were a light level collector. They were willing to buy a set, maybe dinos or, merfolk or zombies or planeswalkers, something. They were willing to collect something. They saw Flesh and Blood come around. They were like, well, maybe I spent £5,000 in that set, in Magic. Okay, cool. I can sell that collection. I'm going to start collecting Flesh and Blood. I'm in at the ground level, right? I can collect. I'm here. I'm here when, maybe not when Welcome to Wraith Alpha came out, but maybe you were here for first edition Arc, or you were here for first edition Crucible, and you almost had a set. You almost had a full set, or maybe you got a first edition full set of Arc, and you started collecting Crucible, right? You go into Crucible, and in between the time that you start collecting Crucible, thinking, hey, I can do this. I've got a full set of all the commons. I've got a full set of all the cold foil Majestics, and I've got most of the cold foil legendaries. And then you turn around and Shiana just jumps to, 6,000? When she's not as rare as Crucible Tunic? Or, they're about the same rarity. Shard is at, 10,000 now? And suddenly, the gap. So, you've got 500 for this cold foil rare, and you've got all of those. But suddenly the gap to make that jump to finish the set just becomes so out of reach. So, you step back from Crucible, you're like, okay, well, now I can't finish this full set of Crucible. What do I do? And you're like, well, okay, but maybe there's always going to be one or two. Maybe the Fabled is just too much. And you're kind of like, okay, I can live with not getting the Fabled or the most rare card from the set if that's just going to be stupid, right? But new set coming out, right? You're feeling optimistic. You've got this new set coming out on the ground level. Your LGS is going to sell to you for £100 a box because she's your mate and you've already talked it over. And you'll be able to pick up a few boxes elsewhere, right? Okay. You've got a plan. How many boxes do you need to guarantee getting a Fabled? Okay, maybe you're not going to chase a Fabled. How many do you need to get a playset of cold foil legendaries with a bit of trading? Maybe 5 cases? Okay, so you set aside 5 cases, £100 a box. Someone do the math for me. Is that 20 grand or so? No, 20 grand, 2 grand or something. Sorry, 4 grand. Yeah, good maths. Not my strong suit at this time of day. Especially when I've been working during the day. So, okay, so you set aside 4 grand. You're like, okay, I'm going to find myself 40 boxes. I'm going to sign myself 5 cases. I'm going to open up those. I'll trade some legendaries. I'll spend a bit more on singles. That'll get me. I'll be done. Right. And I won't get the Fabled. I've seen that's ridiculous. That's okay. But then we're in the lead up to Monarch, right? And you start seeing, okay, well, I've got the 8 boxes from my... I've secured, we'll say you've secured 2 cases from your local game shop, right? I've got 2 cases from a local game shop, and I've got another case from the one down the road. Okay, cool. Let's get the other, 3 or 4 cases I need to finish off this collection with packs. Okay, so you head down the road. Okay, but this shop's selling it for £200, and it's all sold out. Okay, cool. That's a bit puzzling. Then you go a bit further down the road. Okay, well, this shop's selling it for £300, and it's all sold out too. Okay, cool. So where can I still get this? Oh, £400 from, a big online retailer, $500 in America for 1 box. Okay, well, my dream of getting 5 cases and collecting this set is starting to drift further out of reach. I mean, you know, how much am I expected to spend on this before I can make a collection? You know, is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? You know, 15, 20? What's my upper limit here? And then you start to think, okay, well, I couldn't finish Crucible, and that went too expensive too fast, and now I can't find any Monarch. Am I supposed to be collecting this game? You know, I thought I was and I'm not talking about myself, obviously, because I know what I am. I was, you know, but I'm a person who has 10 grand to spend on collecting a game, right? I'm a person who has 15 grand disposable income to spend on collecting a new card game. Am I not the target demographic for this product? Am I not the target for this new card game as a collector? Like, do they off the bat think that this new game is worth, you know, people spending 100 grand on? Like, what is happening here? And, you know, where's the jump? Like, I guess, okay, so what this comes down to is essentially people saying that actually, when they looked at the prices of Monarch First Edition and how hard it was going to be to collect that, after already struggling with Crucible and not being able to finish a set, they have just said to me, to be honest, at that point, I realized I wasn't going to be a collector of Flesh and Blood. Not of Monarch First Edition, not of Alpha or of Crucible, of Flesh and Blood. I was not going to be a collector of Flesh and Blood, and I've seen at least 3 listings of nearly complete Crucible First Editions go up for sale on, you know, on the Discords, with people trying to sell the collection they had started and not finished because they've realized they cannot collect this game. And I'm not talking about people who don't have money. And this is important. I'm not talking about people who don't have money. I'm talking about people who have money, but clearly Flesh and Blood is not for them to buy, which doesn't really make sense because it's a new game. It shouldn't be commanding that level of market authority. So that's troubling to me because we talked about a progression of organic growth from player to collector to big-time collector, or at least mid-level collector. There's always going to be the whales in the ocean, you know, the people with hundreds of thousands to spend on card games. And to a certain extent, those people can dictate whatever market prices they like. But, you know, we're talking about 2 or 3 different things, okay? We're talking about high-volume, slightly smaller trades. So that's if your cold foil legendaries are selling for a couple, you know, 2,000 each, right? You have lots of people buying and selling them. Small time collectors, mid-level collectors are picking up a few to finish off their sets they couldn't get from boxes. There's lots of trade and there's high volume. Everyone's happy. People buying and selling, good markets, collectors are happy, people are happy. Then you have the other one where a cold foil is worth 20 grand and who's buying them? Some people are sitting on collections. If they drop below a certain price, they seem to get snatched up. But mid-level collectors aren't naturally growing. You know, people are just saying that's too expensive and not getting into the collection game at all. And where does the growth come, is what I'm saying. Because when we're talking to people and they're saying, oh, I might collect Flesh and Blood, that seems fun, we just say collect unlimited. Like, collect unlimited, you can get a full play set, it's not going to be that expensive. And people are coming to us and saying, but Flesh and Blood seems way too expensive. Like, I saw a card yesterday selling for 20 grand, and we're saying, look, it's okay, you can get unlimited too. But, you know, if no one can get first edition except for the super whales, then half of the excitement of the game for collectors, except at the very highest level, just sort of fades. So I think there's a problem here. The solution is, like, in the cards, it is just slowly increasing supply to the point where in 3 or 4 sets time, you can buy, you know, Monarch or whatever the set's called, Kingdoms 5, we'll call it, for MSRP for at least a week after it comes out, and then it slowly starts to increase, and supply is basically big enough to match demand for a while until a lot of it is opened, and essentially then Flesh and Blood First Edition becomes the regular Magic collector's set, which you see steady growth of over a few months, right, or a few years, and that is where we need to get to. But it is quite damaging at this stage in a game's growth for a lot of people who could be collectors of this game to be turned off by supply issues. I think that's what I kind of want you to take away from this video. I don't know if I have any other sort of main point here. I think that's just kind of the main takeaway, I think, is just that I want you to start thinking about where the organic growth for this game comes in, because we've got 2 or 3 ways that people like interacting with TCGs. We have as a player, and playership will increase slowly over time as people hear about the game. It will not, people will be put off by the high price tags of cards. You can't really help that at the moment, except by increasing supply. But as long as Unlimited holds true to its course, then we're good on that front. But there are a lot of people who do not just play TCGs, trading card game, collectible card game. They don't just play TCGs to play them, they play them to collect them. And a lot of those people are being left out in the cold by how quickly the Monarch First Edition prices are going up. And if we end up in a situation where all of the cold foils are being snapped up by large-scale investors who just see their future in this game, who are keeping the prices high for themselves, and there's very low movement after they've done their acquisition phase, then really, there's a whole side of this game that's just going to have disappeared and been killed by large amounts of money. It's not an easy solution to solve. I just think it's an interesting problem to discuss. There are ways to do things about it, like making, most of the first edition be done in events rather than in sealed stores, selling boxes opened rather than with the foil removed rather than intact. We've seen a lot of interesting stuff being done in things like Pokemon, where a store will not sell you a sealed box, especially not at retail. If you want it, you buy it in the store, but the plastic wrap will be removed, so you can't sell it. Sell it on. There'll be all these other kind of things, and just that whole kind of thing. It's just a problem. There's lots of little problems with this game at the moment, which have me a bit concerned. I have a lot of confidence because it's a great game to play. I've been really enjoying it. Monarch brings so many fantastic new things, but I think it is worth just acknowledging these points of friction when they come up, because LSS is going to have to be good at finding a solution to them. And I think they are. I don't want to put the company down. This is a company that has impressed me at every turn with the way it's worked, right? It has air freighted stuff when it was delayed. It's communicating really well. It's working with communities, stores, and distributors to find solutions. For example, in my last video, I talked about the UK pre-releases being delayed, but, in this video, I don't get to talk about that because I attended 3 pre-releases, because LSS called the distributors and were like, look, we really need you to make something work. And the distributors in LSS found a way to get the stuff to the stores on the Friday and then get it out to us for the Saturday and Sunday pre-releases. And Asmodee wouldn't have done that with any of their LCGs. I'm being a bit cruel. The FFGOP team was actually quite good, and they did get pre-release kits. They did get tournament kits out to people who needed them, by air freight when needed. But, Wizards, do they care that much? There's a lot of companies that would not go to that effort for us, so we appreciate it, and that's important. Plus the communications, talking about delays openly, talking about problems openly. Their marketing team is really good, really on point, and it's refreshing to see. So I laud LSS. They've made a great game. They've been communicating well. I expect that this problem, I will not be talking about it in 2 years' time. But for now, it is definitely a point of friction, which is the cost of sets and the cost of cards. And it is leading to a lot of fluctuation. People were offering buys of 1 to 2K on Monarch Cold Foil Legendaries yesterday. Today, they're offering buys of 350 because a lot of people are trying to sell them, and a lot of investors are thinking, okay, well, I can buy low because people are trying to get the cost of their packs back. Should you sell your Cold Foil Legendary for $300? I will say no to that. Unless you desperately need the money, you should probably just put that somewhere and wait for things to calm down, and then we'll see how much it's really worth. I suspect 300 will not be how much it's worth. I suspect it will be worth a bit more, but I would also quite like it if the price for these kind of things would equalize around 300 to 400 quid. 300 to 400 pounds for a Cold Foil Legendary from the latest set, is a good price for me. For a collector, for someone who's looking to build up a set, that's, I think, that's an achievable price. 20k per card? That's a joke. It's great. It's a 2-year-old card game. No card should be worth 20k for a 2-year-old card game. It was only printed last year. There's a card here. This card printed worth more than money printed last year. Just where's the logic there? Now, I know people are going to do videos and market economics and all those kind of things. I know about supply and demand, but I'm talking about things that are healthy for a game versus things that are healthy for supply and demand. And those are different. Like, I'll fully admit that the market sets the price and 20k is what something's worth if it's what it's worth. But should it be? That's a different question. That's the realm that I'm operating in. So my last comment, and this is for people who've stuck around as a bit of a bonus content, I'm going to talk about the recent pre-release that happened in the UK and how much of a shit show it was. So I'm not going to name stores in this, though obviously everyone in the UK will know the store that I'm talking about. But I went to and I talked to a lot of people who were playing in a lot of different pre-releases, and in the majority, people showed up to pre-releases. Right? We had a few cases of packs didn't arrive in time, so I can't come. Maybe 2-3 people per event. That's just the nature. We've had shipping delays in the UK. We had a few cases of the event was on this day. We had to move it. I can't make the new event, but can I have my packs anyway? Because I secured a place months ago. Sure, you can. That's fine. Work it out. And then, so we had, I would say, for most events that had like a 28-person kit, they would have got 25 people. For a 16-person kit, they would have got 14, 15 people. Right? All well and good. People are showing up for events. Not a lot of people scalping, taking the packs. People showing up. That's great. That's what we wanted to see. We didn't want scalpers buying packs and selling them online. We wanted people coming and playing the game, right? And then we have this event at a large London shop, noted to be the biggest single pre-release in the UK. You can look it up. I'm not naming the name, but 48 player kit, largest given for remote event play. Any shop in the UK, right? Other stops, I told you, 32, maybe highest 32. Highest 32, usually 16. 16 is a good number, usually 16, sometimes 32. A few of the smaller 24s, but not 48. 48 is the biggest. They got 3 kits. They got 6 playmats to give out, and they got 48 by 6, whatever that is. They got that many boosters boxes, right? It was a lot. It's, I'm not going to say it's more than some stores. Well, no, I will. I'll just go ahead and say it. The amount they got for the pre-release is more than some stores in the UK have been allocated to Monarch First, right? Now, I wish I could say that event went off without a hitch. I wish I could say everyone showed up and we had the biggest pre-release in the UK, online, on webcam, as much as you can do in Corona. We had 48 people. It was fantastic, hard competition, etc., etc. It didn't fucking happen. Sorry, I shouldn't swear, but it just didn't happen. How many people showed up for that pre-release? Out of the 48 that were planned, 13. We got 13 who showed up. Now, okay, 3 people messaged and said, look, the product didn't arrive. I'm really sorry. I'd love to play, but I can't. That brings us up to what, 16? Where's the other? Where is the other 32 people? Right? Okay? Now, I don't want to, I don't like giving out to stores, but realistically, the due diligence was not done on this event, right? To the level that it was supposed to be. There were 5 people on the list with names that looked made up. Now, I'm sorry if there's a family out there with, mum and dad, Will and Sarah, son Will Jr., other son Dylan, brother Matthew, all playing in the same event. I'm sorry if there's a Smith family out there that has that many people interested in Flesh and Blood. You guys are great. Come on the podcast. We'll interview you. It'll be fantastic. Tell us about the whole family plays Flesh and Blood together. It'll be heartwarming. It'll be our Christmas episode in July. But I'm sorry, I'm just going to call bullshit. Half the names on that list look made up. I've got the list saved. They've been shared with LSS. Half the names on that list look made up. It's fucking ridiculous. Sorry, I swear it again. Shouldn't do this on YouTube, but my stuff is marked not for kids, so here we are. People signed up for that event with fake names, just to get packs. I'm sorry, but if you see 5 people down there with the last name Smith, if you see 2 Will Smiths, are you not going to check with them? You're not going to talk to them a bit, try and figure out if they're legit? Was the due diligence done? Were credit cards checked? Addresses checked? All that kind of stuff? I wonder. Because all the stores I know, the smaller stores, They were looking in, they were checking, they were making sure. They were like, okay, well, there's 2 orders to that address, so I'm cancelling that order. And I'm sorry if you live with your girlfriend, but, you know, if I know you, I can make that work. You're my local. We can talk about it on Facebook. If you haven't told me and you've just ordered 2 to the same address, cancelled. Okay, done. Right? Sorted. But here we are. 48 people. 13 showed up. 16 accounted for. That's total. And then you've got all these names that look made up. And they haven't been questioned. They haven't been checked. They haven't been asked. Response, make sure they're real people. You know, check, make sure they're not post boxes or rented, whatever, you know, bollocks. You know, what happened? What happened? It was a massive, colossal failure. And what went from the flagship event of the UK meta just fell apart in front of our eyes. And we thought it was a joke because we were there and it's like, well, no one showed up. What the hell's going on? We were in chat. It's like, do we get it wrong? Did we get the date wrong? Where's all the people? Right? But it went ahead, you know, and, you know, it was a good event. I came second. It was fun. I had a great fun. I had a great pull. And loads of cold foils were pulled, which is great because it means that those packs that went to the people who didn't show up probably didn't have the cold foil legendaries that we all got for showing up for the event. But it still feels bad. So, you know, this is a Corona problem. This is a UK problem because we're doing events remotely, but it was a problem. It was a really big problem. And I have to ask what more could have been done. And I hope LSS is looking into the store that ran this and asking them what more could have been done. What did they do to make sure people showed up? Because, I mean, I like my local stores and I want them to succeed, but I also want them to pay attention and, you know, make events that are worth doing and put in the time and make it worth my energy to show up, you know. And if you've sold that many tickets to an event that people just didn't show up to, you know, hard questions should be asked of you. I'm sorry, I don't want you to get in trouble, but hard questions should be asked about what you've been doing and who those people were and how much you checked to make sure they weren't just people who buying the tickets and not showing up. And also what you're going to do to those people in the future. If any of them try and sign up for the Kingdom pre-release or for Kingdom pre-orders on boxes, you know, they should be blacklisted. If they haven't got in touch with you to tell you that they couldn't make it because the packs hadn't arrived with some form of proof, if they're doing it now after the fact, so they're not just saving their asses, then they should be blacklisted from something. There should be some form of penalty. And that's all I'm really going to say on this subject. I think I've kind of gone on a bit of a rant now, which, you know, I'm fine with, because sometimes I just need to get annoyed at things on the internet. But I feel like this is just, it's just bad. Now, do you know who it wasn't bad for? And I'm going to end on this happy note because I think this is good. It wasn't bad for any of the players who showed up. Let's just put that out there. There were 6 playmats for that pre-release. They all had to be given out, right? We had 13 people show up. And I think it was 14. 2 dropped, but they played 2 rounds, so they were still eligible for the prizes. And to be fair, they dropped because they went 0-2. No hard feelings. The rest of us, 14 of us, 13 of us, we played 4 rounds. I came second, so I won my Shadow playmat. Doomsday, awesome. Other guy who came first won the Light playmat, great. And then the other 4 were raffled off to the other 10 people who were there. So out of all the pre-releases that everyone went to, ours had a 50% mat attendance rate. 50% of the people who showed up got a playmat. So all you people who are playing like £200-300 for a playmat, well, you should have been at the UK pre-release that no one showed up for, because guess what? You might have actually won one. It was pretty good odds. And on that note, and congratulations to all my friends who did actually win random playmats in that announcement. I know you're going to appreciate them. I'm going to sign off. This has been Steel First Speaks. Thank you for listening to this. I don't think this one's been a ramble. I think this one has been pretty good on topic. Bit of pre-release, bit of market discussion, that kind of thing. Quite interesting. So thanks for listening. As always, I'm happy to come and talk to you about things card game related. At the moment, I'm really big on Flesh and Blood, but I do other stuff for other card games as well. I'm looking into see about doing some streaming and things like that, and talk you through some other things that are going on too. If you like this, as always, if you like this video, please do hit like and subscribe to the videos. That lets me know that I'm doing a good job. If there's stuff you would like to hear my thoughts on or hear me discuss, please just let me know in the comments. One of the reasons I enjoy making content for people is that they engage and it leads to interesting discussions that I wouldn't have been able to have without reaching out. So please help me have those discussions by talking back, I guess. And that's it. Kind of everything. Thanks for listening, and of course, please do like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz to this podcast when you get a chance.